So after a month of talking about rums, with a week off in the middle there, it's time we went back to whiskies. And today we're going to be starting off another run of themed videos. For the next 4 weeks we're going to be talking about whiskey. We're going to be talking about Scottish whiskey. We're going to be talking specifically about Scottish whiskies from the Lowlands, which is quite exciting. Now the Lowland region is a region that has had something of an explosion over the last few years. Time was not even all that long ago. The name a Lowland distillery, you're going to struggle. You're going to have Glenkinchie, and then you're going to be like, is Auchentoshan one of them? And then you're going to have Glengoyne was, is it not? And who are those guys with the square bottles? And that's it. That's it. And then suddenly there's been a huge uptake of Lowland distilleries. You've got Glasgow, which are making a big name for themselves, more so now that they've finally kind of upgraded their bottles to 70 CL. That might have just been a needing time to get everything working thing, but we're there now. We're reaping the rewards of that. And I do need to get my hands on a bottle of the 1770 green at some point. At the time of recording this, actually, there was a couple of limited releases. They've both been snapped up. They're both gone now. There was a peated release, which was a cognac finish, I believe, and an unpeated release, which was a tequila cask. The tequila one went very quickly because it's our new toy at the minute in the whiskey world. Tequila casks. It's not been. Well, it's been about a year and a bit now. The tequila and mezcal casks have been allowed, and a few other casks as well. Now that they clarified what you can and can't use, because before it was kind of. It was a little up in the air, so people kind of stuck to what they knew, you know, and they kind of edged in and were like, right, well, we can use ex-bourbon, so surely we can use cognac as well, because they're kind of adjacent to each other. So that worked, but then tequila, particularly because it had such a reputation of just like, you know, way shots, people stayed away from it because it gets a very bad reputation in the UK because it's just completely abused as a spirit. And I'll be the first to say that it's completely abused as a spirit. And having actually tried a couple of lovely tequilas, what the fuck are we doing? But anyway, that is not the point of today's video. If you're still watching this after that rambly introduction, do please join the cult by clicking the subscribe button to the channel. There we go. I've been out of it for the last few weeks. This is my first recording since the Fringe started. We'll be talking a little bit more about that and get to have a little snippet of something interesting that happened as well, so stick around for that. Lowland whiskies are what we're going to be doing for the next 4 weeks. So I'm going to record these and I'm going to release them all in a wanna for Patreon and channel members. So they'll get the full month in a wanna. So Patreon, this is coming at you. It's probably the patrons being kind of like, ooh, we get things. Yes, you do. You know, gotta put the perks out there. And for the rest of you, if you want to kind of go the slow route, then this will be you for the rest of the month. Or if you do want to see them in advance, then you can sign up to Patreon, starting at £1. Helps keep this alive, basically. It's the worst time to be asking for money, potentially, because things aren't good. If you are in that situation, because I'm a firm believer that the art should be for everyone and it should be free, don't. Okay? It's fine. Don't worry about it. But, you know, if you are in that situation and you do want to jump the queue, for want of a better way of putting it, then you can. So, Lowlands. Today we're going to be talking about Lochlea Distillery. It's another one of those ones where the pronunciation could potentially trip you up. It could be Lochlea. It's not. It is pronounced Lochlea. Because, you know, distillery names, you can't have it easy. Except for Glasgow. But even then, some people do mess that one up, turns out. Glisky. That's what the natives call it, to be fair, so I'm going to get shot at some point. But, I mean, it's fine. The one we're going to be talking about today, actually, I don't have the bottle to show you because the way we operate on this, we go through samples. There is an argument to be made that you don't get the best out of it and all the rest of it. I'm well aware of it. My channel is very much more first impressions rather than having lived with it and gotten to know it through weeks and months. For the simple fact that I don't have the budget. You know, I'm a millennial. I rent. You know, if you're wondering, oh, I've never seen this shirt before, I have now taken to wearing my boyfriend's clothes. So, you know, that should give you some idea of where I'm at. But you know, that brings us back to a nice segue about the Fringe. I'll quickly go on about that, and then we'll talk about the whiskey. How's that for you? I'll put chapters in as well if you want to skip this, so that's fine. But those of you who like sort of the conversational, rambly stuff that I do, the last 2.5 weeks now, the Edinburgh Fringe has been going on. And I've been spending pretty much all of it with my boyfriend, and we've been seeing shows all over the place. One of the shows that he introduced me to is one by Kate Smurthwaite. He's actually introduced me to Kate Smurthwaite, full stop. She's one of his favourite comedians, basically. And she has the show called Late with Kate, and we've been about 5 or 6 times now, and it changes each night. You get like different acts each night, and it's on at midnight. And in an hour and a half at the time of recording this, he was supposed to be on stage performing stand-up. Now, and all the time I've known him, one of the first things he told me was that he has performed stand-up in the past, and I was with a group called Icebreaker, and I was very keen to see him do stand-up, because he's naturally quite performative. He's a very funny man, and I was very keen to see him do that, because I also have a background in comedy. Had I done anything this year, then I could have got up on stage and said, last time I did the Fringe was 10 years ago. This year, because last time 2012, I did actually do a show in the Fringe. It was called Let's Abduct Mother Teresa, and it wasn't good. It wasn't great, but that's for another time. But long story short, he's gotten the old COVID, and it's kicking his ass. I have tested negative twice now, despite the fact that we were like, you know, in close proximity to each other, and you know, I even kissed him goodnight at one point yesterday, and it won't fucking touch me. I must be immune at this point. It's ludicrous. That's not to say it won't rear its ugly head, but we shall see. And another fun thing, actually, let's get into the whiskey quickly, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about a show that went wrong by some people that, luckily, were quite well trained for it. So this is Lochlea. Now, the bottle itself, lovely square bottle. Lowlands and square bottles seem to go hand in hand. And the whiskey itself was actually supposed to be released on November 2021, I believe it was, but they weren't able to get a hold of the bottles. So they delayed it until January 25th, which is Burns Night. I don't think they had to delay it that much. I think they did actually get their hands on the bottles before that, but they decided that it was close enough to Burns Night, and there's a symbolic connection that the distillery has with Robert Burns. The grounds, and by extension the farm, that the distillery is now on, Robert Burns used to work on that site, and Robert Burns he's Scottish Shakespeare, basically, for want of a better way of putting him. So yes, high school students do have to suffer through, as if he's the only fucking writer. But he, you know, he knew how to turn a phrase, you know, he knew how to throw together some words. I don't know how he'd have done in a rap battle, but that's besides the point. So they released it, and this is actually a sample of their inaugural, or their first release, is what I should call it. 46% natural colour, non-chill filtered, all the lovely things. Retailed for about 50 quid, and it got snapped up like that. Gone. A lot of the bottles ended up on auction for ludicrous prices, as per usual, because it's the economy we live in at the minute of, you know, the secondary market for whiskey is just... is that noise. I nearly said nose, so there's a good segue to actually do the nose on this. I'm going to be doing this out of my Formosus class today, so, you know, that's fun for all the family. It's not. The first thing this reminds me of is New York cheesecake, which is a bizarre one. I know, I have the weirdest tasting and smelling notes, but it's part of the fun, let's face it. And I'm not lying to you when I say this reminds me of New York cheesecake. It's got a little bit of a, sort of the earthy funk that you get from an old school Ben Nevis, not the current bottling, because that's been very sanitised, unfortunately. It's still fine as a whiskey, it's just kind of lost its soul a little bit, but that's a rant for another day. The previous generation of Ben Nevis, which had this kind of like rusty funk to it, is the way I think I described it at the time. But on top of that, there's also like a lovely citrus freshness to it. I'm going to nail my colours to a mast and say lime. So, do you know what? Lime peel, bit of lime zest. again, just that kind of, that cheesecakiness. It's like a rich, creamy, sweet Philadelphia, for want of a better way of putting it. But it really is reminding me of that. And it's a lovely aroma. It's a lovely, baked, good aroma. Plenty of fresh lime. It's got that little nip of bitterness that you get with the lime zest sometimes as well. It's a little biscuity. I don't think it can make its mind up whether it's a cheesecake or a key lime pie, to be fair. Why not both? I mean, we're all going to die one day. It's beautifully fresh yet comforting, and it's got a subtle aroma to it, but it is just lovely. It's a very appealing nose, and it's also quite. I don't want to say unique because that's a funny word, but it's very surprisingly confident of its style, I think is the way that I want to put this. It's very much kind of like, this is what I am, and it's quite distinctive in its own right, which for a first release young whiskey is really quite something. We've been getting a lot with new releases that they are very flavour forward. Because a lot of these whiskies, obviously, they're getting into a market where it's good times, but at the same time, you've got to make a name for yourself. You fuck it up at the start, that's you, you know? And you've invested all this time and energy and money. It's worth bottling a stunning whiskey. I mean, Daffmill did a wonderful thing, which is they didn't bugger around, you know? They just went, yeah, it's our whiskey, and we're just going to leave it until we think it's ready, and we'll let you know. And it's worked for them, you know. It's limited releases. You never know when they're going to come out. Or, well, you know, you get a bit of a heads up, but it's not like, you know, there's like an annual release or anything like that. And people are clamoring over each other to get hands on the bottle because it's their pension fund. What? I'm not lying, am I? Let's face it. The second the arse falls out of the whiskey sector, oof. It's getting brighter and fresher the longer that I'm nosing it as well. It's really leaning into that citrus, bright. It's a little grassy. It's a beautiful, refreshing nose. I mentioned, actually, I'm going to talk about The Fringe again. There's another show we saw, just keep this going. There's another show we saw. I'm a big fan of Mischief. They're a production company. They do the Goes Wrong show, which some of you might have seen on the BBC. There's 2 series of that, and they did Peter Pan Goes Wrong, which was their first production. That was a Christmas production back in 2017, I want to say. I love them. I think the stuff that they produce is fantastic. They're doing 3 shows at the Fringe this year, and they were also doing a collaborative show with Showstoppers, who are an improv troupe who I also adore, and it's a science fiction one called Starship Improvise. There it is. So as soon as I found out about that, I was like, we are getting tickets to see this. Now, my fella wasn't too keen on this, so we started watching it, and it was a bit of a slow burner, if I'm completely honest. Wasn't the best thing I've seen of the Fringe, if I'm being hypercritical. However, things changed when the fire alarm went off and we all got evacuated. Now, the staff there didn't have a clear plan of, you know, how to evacuate the building, because they kept just going, keep moving, keep moving. My boyfriend actually shouted at them, where? Where do you want us to go? Because there was absolutely no, like, clear instruction from them. So eventually we ended up kind of like going down the underpass. We're at, it's calling itself Teviot, but it's, no, it's calling itself Pleasance, but we're at Teviot, that was it. Because, you know, yeah, of course, sure you should fucking do that. And we ended up under the underpass just by the bridge, just near Potter Row. And basically after about 10 minutes, when it became apparent that we weren't going to be getting back in anytime soon, the production company actually came out, and there was like a little cubby where we were all kind of gathered, and they improvised that, appropriately enough, into a stage and finished the production. And I've actually got a snippet on my phone of Henry Shields kind of like giving a summary of where we were. So I'm going to put that in now because I don't think there's ever going to be another opportunity for me to put in the people behind the Goes Wrong show and Showstoppers into a video. So this is my opportunity.
He's been very lonely and sad, and he misses his friends. Abandoned at birth. And he was abandoned at birth, and his mum was found. Hi everyone. His mum was found on this planet. Meanwhile, me, Lam Raynor, and Frank Cross came up with a plan because something was amiss. We were suspicious of this woman alone on the planet, so they're about to go in and try and steal a drop of her blood. We left off at the point at which they were deciding how best to steal that blood, and the plan they had come up with was to go in dressed as room service, and they were discussing the correct accent. They landed on Northern Irish and were trying to decide on their backstories. Enjoy!
What does that have to do with whiskey? Absolutely nothing, but it's a little bit of side entertainment, like in The Young Ones where they had like a musical bit because, I don't know, something to do with licensing or something. Anyway, we should get on with how this tastes. So, it's light, a little fiery, a little gingery, kind of it's got a biscuity back note to it. It's almost kind of like the sweet meal biscuits. There's a little bit of dry ginger in there as well. Not ginger nuts, just, you know, like pantry ginger that you might put into, I don't know, things that need ginger. I can't really think of a time that I've used dry ginger, so I don't really know how you apply it. It's biscuity to start out. There's a rich creaminess to the palate. It's a little citrusy. There's hints of vanilla. It's got a little bit of kind of like a citric bite to it, like the sensation that you get when you've maybe had something with a bit too much acid in it, that little kind of bite that it's got to it. As it goes on as well, it warms up a little bit. It becomes a little more genteel. A little more of those kind of vanilla and gentler biscuit components come out, and that ginger kind of fades into the back. So it's kind of changing as I get used to it. Would I say that this was a new whiskey? No. This could go toe-to-toe with a 10-year-old, I would expect. And I suspect that is the point of it being a first release. You can still get samples of this, incidentally, if you are curious. And there are a few bars out there, one or two at least, that do have this on their back bars. It has no value as a sample. Its entire value was to flippers. And for the poor buggers that actually wanted to try it, so if you're one of the poor buggers that want to try it, you can get samples of it. I'm going to pop a few squirts of water into there. Is my pipette going to run away? I've got a pipette now, by the way, so that's exciting. Those cheesecake notes are still there. There's still plenty of the lime character. Really, the nose, it's remained genteel, a little sweet, delicate, dairy-led. There's maybe like a hint of white pepper in there as well. There is a slight heat spice component coming through. It's rich, creamy, grassy, bright. Oh, that's opened up massively with water. Oh, now we're here to party. Yeah. The ginger has turned into more kind of like a nutmeg and allspice kind of a thing. It's got a warming spice component to it. It's got a little bit of a fieriness to it as well. And it's got quite a drying finish to it as well. In the mid-ground of it, in the mid-ground, what am I on about? While you're getting used to all of that as well, this creamy, buttery, biscuity lime affair is going on as well. It's like a lime curd and digestive biscuits. There's a little bit of a of a coconut edge to it as well. It's just a very mild, creamy, slightly tropical edge to it. Just kind of changed things up a little. More of the whiskey sweetness is coming through after you add a bit of water as well. It was holding back before, whereas now it's a much richer affair on the palate. It's not especially fruity outside of the citrus components. What you are getting instead is just a very mellow, calm, it's got reminiscence of things like vanilla pudding, rice pudding, ice cream, that kind of a thing. It's quite rich, thick, viscous, dairy-forward kind of sweet desserts. And then you've got lime just cutting through that. The lime has been a very consistent note in this. I don't want to say it's monotone, but at the same time, you know, it knows what it's doing and it does it well. I never talked about the cask makeup on this one as well. It's a mix of ex-bourbon barrels and Pedro Jimenez. I'm a sucker for Pedro Jimenez. I do love a sweet sherry, because I'm 89 years old. No, sherry's cool again. Sherry's absolutely cool. It's just people need to be convinced that it's cool. And John Campbell from Lafroig is overseeing them now. When they announced that, actually, we were A, surprised that he was leaving Lafroig, and B, surprised that Lochlea had managed to snatch him up. We were like, oh, oh, hello. It is noteworthy as well, actually, that a lot of kind of like the old guard of like very established distilleries are jumping onto these brand new distilleries and being like, yeah, I want a piece of this. And it's very exciting to see. It almost makes you wonder, you know, do they know something we don't? Perhaps the whiskey revolution is upon us. It's been here for a little while, hasn't it? But I suspect there's going to be very exciting things from each of these newer distilleries as they kind of find their footing. That's everything from me, I believe. This is a delightful whiskey. You can't buy it anymore. So this is very much just a talking heads piece, which is why I've been kind of fast and loose with the format on this one. I hope you enjoyed this. Comment down below. Have you ever been to the Fringe before? Have you seen any shows? What was your favourite thing? Have you tried Lochlea? They've got a few releases out now. They've got their homegrown or home sown or something like that, and they've got their R Barley, which is their core release. Which, now they got this out of the way and everyone went, oh, I want to flip it. Now you've got their here to stay editions, and they're still quite readily available, so you can get your hands on it. The bottle is gorgeous. It's got tyre tracks on it. It's a lovely design, a little modern. Some people have been complaining, but fuck them. Yeah, and based off of this, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. It will not be the last time I try it, I'm sure. Thank you very much for watching. Thumb this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you like these kinds of shenanigans, sort of ranty, rambly, pseudo-informative content. And do join me next time.